You're listening to Hashtag No Filter with Zack Peter. That's me, your naturally platinum blonde pop culture connoisseur. I'm the reality TV junkie, self-improvement addict, and host with only the hottest tea spilled fresh weekly. For more hot takes, go and give me a follow at Just Plain Zack. I always keep it funny and I always keep it cute. Or if you like me and you want to stay up to date with the latest reality tea, then go and give us a follow at No Filter with Zack on the Instagram or join our private Facebook group. The link is in the description below. I hope right now you're sipping on some of my fizzy Housewives-inspired wine, packing a punch at 13% alcohol by volume, but less than a gram of sugar. Head over to nofilterwine.com to stock up. Must be 21 or older to order. Head over right now, nofilterwine.com. Okay, we have a lot of tea to spill because there was a lot of tea that was spilled over the weekend, specifically with Garcelle Beauvais' son, and we have a lot to break down today, and I figured I need somebody that always has the latest scoop, who's really the real deal. So please welcome back on Hashtag No Filter, Mr. Evan Real.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I feel like this weekend was absolutely insane. And the Garcelle, Oliver, Raquel of it all, like I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. It's so crazy, but I'm excited because I feel like we're entering another golden era of Vanderpump Rules. Like I'm excited for the next season. And I feel like after the last season, I feel like the Bravo fandom was like kind of half and half. Like, are we excited? Are we not? Should the show end? But like the kids are bringing it. They are being so messy. There's so much drama to unpack. And I cannot wait. And I'm so glad that Raquel is doing the most.
The most. Okay, because I know when they were on the off season, we had like all the breakups happening and there was so much happening that everybody was like, why is Vanderpump Rules not filming right now? And then finally once they picked up production, I remember it being like, oh, they missed so much that like, is it going to be any good? And now we're just seeing that like there is so much happening. And Raquel, who I was okay losing last season, I'm so glad Raquel's going to be the MVP this season.
Oh my God, yeah, I feel like she's going to carry this season because she's hooking up with Schwartz, then she's hooking up with Oliver Saunders, which is Garcelle's son, and that's exciting in and of itself. Apparently, Sheena is upset with Katie and over the whole like Raquel of it all. Like there just seems like there's like a lot of drama to be had on this season, and I'm happy that Raquel is at the center of it all because you mentioned that you could lose Raquel, but I always felt like there was potential there. And after breaking up with James, I feel like she's just going to flourish and become a standout star of the series. So I'm excited for her. And I'm glad she's performing. Like I feel like she's understanding the assignment.
I mean, it took her long enough. I feel like I was the biggest Raquel critic because I was like, we really don't need her on this show. I hope we got rid of Charlie. Like, if anything, if I can pray to baby Jesus and give him a blowjob, like Charlie has to go because I think Charlie brings nothing to the show other than the cute moment she tried to have, and I say tried very loosely, tried to have with Jax at her first reunion. It was cute, but I don't think she's brought anything beyond that.
I think she's beautiful.
She's very pretty.
She is very pretty. And yeah, I don't know if she's brought anything
Evan, that's
beyond...
like saying you have a great personality.
No, I think that Charlie is gorgeous and she does have a great personality. And I agree with you. I think she had a moment with Jackson that was wonderful. I think that she has potential, but maybe the other cast members aren't like leaning into her potential, so therefore she like doesn't have an opportunity to show what she's capable of. And this opportunity has now been given to Raquel because Raquel is like bopping all over the place with Schwartz, with Oliver. I feel like she's kind of in good standing with most of the cast, so that works out for her as well. So I mean, look, like Raquel kind of seemed like a little like easygoing, a little bit too mellow in comparison to our OG Vanderpump Rules stars. But I think that now she like is kind of like leaning into the job a little bit more. So I would love nothing more than for Raquel to be the queen of Vanderpump Rules season 10. I love the idea of that.
I don't hate it. I'm going to tell you that. I don't hate. Well, we'll see what she brings. She's clearly in a lot of the mix, but she's got to carry the mix as well. Otherwise, she's just going to be, getting dragged like Sutton. But let's dive into the Oliver stuff. So Oliver, who's Garcelle's son, was outed by his wife for all of these messages that he was sending in the DMs and in the text messages to all these different women. So his wife, Samantha, began posting a series of screenshots in this exchange with him and several other women. She claims that he'll have a guest role on Vanderpump Rules in the new season. Obviously, we know he works at Vanderpump Paris out in Las Vegas. So she claims that part of Raquel's storyline is that she's going to be dating him, but apparently he's been married the entire time. But in a lot of the DMs, he's claiming that he was getting a divorce and that he was separated from Samantha. Samantha's also accused Garcelle of saying that Garcelle's trying to silence her, and gasp, Garcelle has unfollowed her. What? An unfollow says a lot. And so here, I'll just read in part what she posted to her Instagram. She says that I've been told to stay silent, divorce, since Oliver has started working for Vanderpump Paris. He has disrespected me and my kids in every way possible. He's made jokes about my mental health and suicidal thoughts with coworkers. He's committed adultery with coworkers and guests of the restaurant. I found out that he made out with Raquel while filming Vanderpump Rules and plans to continue to go on a date with Raquel while filming, which I believe has happened because there was some footage that was leaked. It was unclear when the footage was recorded, but there was a date that they went on, and I believe Vanderpump cameras were there filming it. So that already checks out. He continues to lie to me and say that he wanted to work on things, but behind my back continued to talk bad about me and disown being a stepdad. My family will need time to heal from all of this. Please respect our privacy. We would like to move through this we've been through publicly and behind closed doors. Please keep us in your prayers. Yes, I have receipts on everything. And she dropped those receipts, and oh boy, we learned a lot about his tasty cock. We learned a lot about his moves in the bedroom. We've learned about all of the throats that he's been getting. She doxed one of the women because the phone number was in there. I mean, it was wild, these DMs. None were with Raquel though, right? None of these were Raquel's DMs.
Yeah, none of them were with Raquel. And from what I understand from the sources I've spoken to, Raquel was under the impression that Oliver and Samantha were separated and going through a divorce. But Samantha was not under that impression and found out about Oliver's alleged cheating with Raquel and the other women after the fact. And so now she seems to be considering divorce, knowing that her husband stepped out on her. But yeah, it's really, really messy. The date that they went on, that was filmed the day that Samantha released all her messages. And I believe that was
filmed the same day.
Yes, it was filmed the same day, and it was Friday, September 2nd, I believe. It was that same day. And so what I'm hearing is that Raquel, as she was getting ready for her date with Oliver, they had made out in Vegas prior. And so she was willing to explore this connection further as season 10 of Vanderpump Rules was filming. And so Samantha's messages came out as she was getting ready for this date. And then she went on the date. We saw the video footage of them hugging, sitting down for the date. But apparently it wasn't just a normal date. It was Raquel saying, look, what you told me wasn't true. And I'm here to tell you that that's not cool. And I guess Raquel put him in his place. So I don't know what the future holds for Oliver and Raquel, but Raquel definitely decided to speak up for herself and say, look, you are two-timing me and Samantha, and that is not cool, and I'm not going to be played like that. So,
and all these other women in the GMs.
And all those women, because aside from Raquel, aside from Samantha, he was allegedly talking all this kind of crazy business to the other girls. I mean, to be honest, like, the sexting was fire. Like, if some, I mean, I'm an engaged man, but I'm just saying, if I wasn't, some of the sex that Oliver allegedly sent, like, total turn on.
I mean, I just love that one, all of this was happening as Garcelle was filming her triumphant scene with Lisa Vanderpump for Vanderpump Rules. Like perfect timing, because the two of them were like, this is gonna be such an iconic moment. We're filming together, Lisa Vanderpump, Garcelle, and on the same day, Samantha decides to go public with all of this information. And I also love that Erica started following Oliver as this was all breaking.
I need to know more about that because, as we all know, if you've been watching The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, Erica and Oliver. Well, Erica and Garcelle's children had their moment, but like Erica and Oliver also had like a weird moment where like Erica was hitting on him and saying like, let's have a threesome, let's do this, let's do that, like talk to your baby mama about it. So I don't know. Oliver is currently private because of all the mess that's going on. So I do wonder, like, was he private before he accepted Erica's follow? And if he accepted it after he was private, what does that mean now that he said in a since deleted Instagram post that he and Samantha are divorcing. Now that he's divorcing her, he's a single man. Raquel has told him, yo, like, I'm not feeling that. Like, now is he exploring his options in the way of Eric and Jane? He's like, yo, that a hookup situation with Eric and Jane kind of sounds nice right now. I don't know.
I mean, well, let's see if Erica's still following him or if maybe she got blocked,
check that
something. I know she was following him and people were like, oh my gosh. And then I didn't know. I mean, I figured he was going to be. No, she's not currently following him. So either she's unfollowed him or he's blocked her.
Interesting. Okay.
I mean, listen. Why not? I mean, at that point, he's technically single now, Erica. Slide into those DMs.
He is single and he's very handsome.
That would be another Brandi Glanville moment where remember when she slept with Max's best friend and Lisa was like, you slept with Max's best friend. She's like, I did, and it was great. And she's like,
yeah,
he's
like
why 24.
not?
And she's like, so what?
Yeah, go for it, Erica. Why the fuck not? Like, obviously he's single now.
Mm-hmm. So what are your thoughts on Raquel? Because so many people in the comments are saying, oh, she sure gets around. But I'm just like, she's single, okay? Like, she can get around if she wants to get around. And listen, we've heard she's talked to what? 3 guys? That doesn't mean she's banging all 3 guys. And if she wanted to bang all 3 guys at the same time, that's her prerogative. She's single. She went on a date with Peter. She has now gone on a date with Oliver. She's made out with Oliver, and we know that she was making out, or according to, I believe it was your sources, Evan, she was making out with people at Sheena's wedding. I think that's hard, like making out with a couple of people. Listen, when I was on tour, I made out with 3 people in one night in Nashville. So that's hardly getting around.
So you and Raquel are obviously kindred spirits. Yeah, I don't look. Raquel's single. She should have the freedom to make out with whoever the hell she wants to, whether it's Oliver, Schwartz, Peter, like, go do your thing. What I do love about this whole situation is that Oliver's wife, Samantha, she posted a statement on her Instagram story and she was like, look, like, I don't blame Raquel. Like, she's been nothing but kind and respectful throughout this whole process. Yeah. And that lines up with the information that I've been getting from my sources, is that Raquel, she truly thought that Oliver was like in the process of getting a divorce, that he was separated. So obviously Oliver kind of relayed some incorrect information to her, and I don't think that Raquel would have ever accepted a date with Oliver had she known the situation between him and Samantha. I don't think she would have ever made out with Oliver if she had known that they weren't actually getting a divorce. And now that it's like blown up this way, now Samantha's like, okay, well, maybe I actually do need to get a divorce. Yeah, I don't blame Raquel for anything. I'm so happy for her. I'm happy for any girl who goes after it. Like, she is living her single girl fantasy, and yeah, she deserves to live her single girl fantasy. Like, right? I'm not mad at all.
I mean, and can we say, like, she's clearly just like trying everything, right? Because James Kennedy, Peter Madrigal, Tom Schwartz, and then Oliver, like, there's nothing remotely similar about any of these 4 guys. I mean, other than maybe like Oliver and Peter are both kind of more muscular, but like Schwartz is more doughy and James is like super skinny. I mean, they're all kind of tall. So she likes them tall, but other than that, I mean,
look, you gotta see what sticks. She's weighing her options. She's seeing what's gonna work for her, and you can't blame her for that. I'm down for this Raquel renaissance. I hope that season 10 is her moment to blossom. Like, who knows? Like, she may end up being like the next Stassi of
Is
Vanderpump Rules.
is there any of the three options, Peter, Schwartz, Oliver, that you're kind of really rooting for right now? Like, who do you want Raquel to give the final rose to?
I think that if I could decide who she gave the final rose to, I would say Schwartz. Because I think that Oliver is a little bit messy with his current situation with Samantha. So, yeah, I'd say give the final rose to Schwartz because I think that there could be something there. Like, they're both so sweet. Like, I've met Schwartz and Raquel in person, and they're both very sweet people. They're a little passive. I don't know if that, I don't know how that would like impact a long-term relationship, but I feel like they're both so similar that there is potential for something to blossom. I think that there could be something beautiful that could come out of it. And I just find Schwartz is so sweet. Like, he honestly, like, every time I interview him for Page Six, like, I remember I was at the Vanderpump Vegas opening and we were on the carpet and he literally had me sit down with him. Like, we like sat on the carpet and like talked for like 12 minutes. He's just so kind. So like, I want to give him my final rose to Schwartz. So I'm hoping that Raquel gives her final rose to Schwartz. Also, I find Peter very attractive. I know like maybe some people would agree with that. Okay, so basically what I'm saying is fuck, marry, kill. So marry Schwartz, fuck Peter, kill Oliver, not because I want to see Oliver dead, but just because I want to see Raquel remove herself from like a situation that's just like she's not gonna be able to fix that.
See, I would fuck Oliver because I mean the DM said it all.
Oh, that yes, that part. Yes, okay.
See, because
I wouldn't want to
we're
miss
not
out
keeping
on
them
that.
around. Yeah, you might as well. I mean, he's already like you might as well to try it on for size. I mean, it's like a sample at Costco. And then I would definitely marry Schwartz, and yeah, I would definitely kill Peter. Only I'm not the biggest. I wouldn't date Peter. Have you interviewed him? Have you met him?
I've met Peter. I've never like technically like interviewed
Oh
him, but
my
I've
God.
met him. I've seen him out at the restaurants.
Yeah.
And I will say the last time I saw him, I was at like a work dinner with like some of the Page Six crew in LA, and we were at Sir, and he was like the way he was like so kind to my female coworkers, like attracted me to him. Like
Aw.
if he like he was so nice. Like I just love a nice boy. And so like if I were a girl and he was interested in me and he asked me out on a date, I would 100% say yes. I don't know. I'm just Peter's kind of my type. Like he's like big, he's tall, he's like a little like beefy, he's
Yeah.
kind. Like I'm I'm into Peter. Peter, if you're listening, like take me on a date. I am engaged to a
Physically,
man, but
Peter, I'm single. Physically, yes, and I will say he has very like strong sexual chemistry that like he can very like get you. You know who else has that is Sandoval that I didn't expect. Sandoval has very strong sexual chemistry that I'm just like,
yes.
hi, wow, I did not. The pheromones are just like coming out at me.
Sandoval could 100% get it. Even like I've met him in person like many times, but like even just watching the show, he's so sweet, he's so kind, he's so considerate. Like Sandoval, let's get to it. I'm ready.
So, what is the latest that we have on Raquel and Schwartz? I think Peter is exhausted, and I think Oliver is clearly not an option anymore.
So I think with Raquel and Schwartz, it's kind of like up in the air. Now that she told Oliver, like, yo, like, that's not cool what you did, I think that maybe that leaves a door open for her and Schwartz to continue whatever was going on at the wedding, at Sheena's
Mexico.
wedding. So I don't know. Like, maybe this whole Oliver situation happened for a reason. And the reason was for Raquel to figure out that Schwartz is the man for her.
I mean, I think I want to see Schwartz happy, and I kind of feel like Raquel deserves to be happy too. I feel like James and Katie were a little bit much for the two of them. Like James could be very aggressive towards Raquel, and Katie could be very aggressive towards Schwartz. And I feel like they both have a much more like calming energy that might actually kind of be a nice coupling.
Yeah, I think that Raquel and Schwartz could have a very easy relationship. And they're also so they're both just so cute. Like I love I love the way they look together. I think that Schwartz is so freaking handsome. And I think Raquel is so beautiful. And I told her this before. I was at one of Sandoval's concerts and I went up to her in person just because like it was like on my mind. She looks like if Olivia Jade and Olivia Palermo had a baby.
Yes.
And she did not know who Olivia Palermo was, so I had to like literally Google image Olivia Palermo for her, but she agreed. And so, anyways, I just think that Raquel's just so physically gorgeous, and I think
Yes.
that Schwartz is also physically gorgeous. That it
Yeah.
just makes sense for me. Like I don't know what they would talk about, but I don't care as long as there's pictures of them together.
They don't need to talk. They make out.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so let's pivot over. I want to talk about Bethenny potentially getting canceled again. Okay. I mean, I feel like she gets canceled all the time. But anyway, so the Bethenny, the Spencer, the Lisa, the Courtney. Okay, so Spencer Pratt posted on his TikTok about Lisa Kudrow saying that she's the worst celebrity that he's ever met.
Yes.
He claims that they were at a party with her and Heidi back in the day, and this is when Lisa Kudrow, he claims, approached Heidi and told her that she needed to dump Spencer because she was afraid that Spencer was going to kill her one day, which very extreme. Do you think that this is true? Was Lisa Kudrow a big fan of The Hills?
Now that you ask like that, like, yeah, I don't know. Was Lisa Kudrow a big fan of The Hills? Like, according to Spencer, she was certainly watching, but I would never take her for a Hills fan.
Right?
However, I don't think that Spencer would make up all that he said. I mean, apparently she told Heidi that Spencer had serial killer eyes and was like scared of him. So obviously she was tuned in, maybe not to the show, but certainly to like the tabloid coverage back in the day. And you know, in Lisa Kudrow's defense, like the end of Spidey's Hills journey was
dark.
It was dark. Like they weren't even invited to the finale party because I think that Spencer like allegedly threatened to kill a producer. So like, you know, things were rough back then.
Well,
but
the producer ended up being Adam Devine. Is that him? The one
was
that everyone's...
it Adam? I'm not sure if like the producer that Spencer allegedly threatened to inflict physical harm on was Adam himself. It may have been. I'm not sure. I need to do.
I just know there was beef with when he went on Color Daddy recently. He talked about Adam after Kristen and Audrina talked about Adam. So I just kind of, that's my own presumption, is that maybe he was the producer that they were having beef with, because I believe Spencer's accused Adam of being inappropriate with Heidi.
Oh, totally. Yes. Spencer has for sure accused Adam of being inappropriate with Heidi, and he very well may have been the one that Spencer allegedly threatened to inflict physical harm on. I'm not sure. But the end of their Hills journey was dark, and maybe Lisa sensed that, whether through watching the show, whether through reading Us Weekly, I'm not really sure, but she decided to say something and it rubbed Spencer the wrong way. And I think it's a tough situation because like Spencer has been so vocal after the fact, saying that, like, you know, I was playing a character. Like, I knew I had to be the villain. That's what I had to do. So who knows what was real, what wasn't real. What is apparently real is Spencer's opinion on Lisa Kudrow, that she's a sucky person, as Lauren Conrad would say. And I guess Bethenny also didn't have a wonderful experience with Lisa Kudrow. She was like, I also like had a weird moment with her. And then she posted another TikTok. Kind of like
a couple of them.
Herself.
Well, do you think that Lisa Kudrow's comment was made in jest, or do you think it was like a genuine like concern for Heidi? Like, let me pull this young girl aside and let me give her my like genuine thoughts. Because I feel like Lisa Kudrow, I don't know, the impression that I get from her is like maybe like, it sounds like there's possibly some hyperbole behind those words. I mean, serial killer eyes, like to me, it just sounded a little dramatic.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Maybe there was like some hyperbole going on. And I think that, you know, back in the day, the lines between reality versus what was scripted on The Hills was so blurred. So I think that maybe Lisa was like coming through like an actually concerned place, because like back in the day, viewers weren't as sophisticated. Like now I can watch a reality show and kind of like figure out like what's like very much produced and what's not. And back in the day when I was watching The Hills, I kind of
believed everything.
Yeah. Like I thought it was like 85% real. So when the Hills ended and when Spidey's journey ended on the Hills, like I was such a Heidi fan
Yeah.
that like I was like, oh, like Heidi would be so great without Spencer because he's really exhibiting some concerning behavior. But like now that he's like spoken about his experience and now that we know what we know about reality TV, it makes sense. Like he was just playing the villain. So I think that maybe like Lisa's comments could have come from a place
Genuine.
like a good place. But then when Bethenny shared her little story, I was like, I
Okay.
don't
Did
know.
you go back and watch the clip of Lisa Kudrow and Bethenny?
I have not watched it back
Okay.
yet, but I need to do it because Bethany's little story on TikTok I found very interesting. It was kind of
Interesting.
like she was trying to like be like, I didn't mean it. Like Lisa Kudrow was fine, but there were some factors that contributed to her lack of engagement during our interview.
Yeah, I think, well, because Bethany just made a comment about like, it was really just like essentially a same sort of like comment that she left on Spencer as like kind of like relating to him about Lisa Kudrow kind of being a little, her experience being a little bizarre. And then it ended up making a bunch of headlines saying that like Spencer and Bethany both agreed that Lisa Kudrow is the worst thing ever. And then Bethany like tried to clarify it, and she was saying that her interview with Lisa was just very bizarre because it felt like Lisa wasn't fully present and she wasn't like, as you said, engaged. Like she just didn't seem like she really wanted to be there. And Bethany's like, it kind of felt like it was probably because she owed a favor to Ellen and Ellen produced my show, that maybe like she kind of had to be there for whatever reason, but it didn't feel like she wanted to be there. So I went back and I watched the clips,
What did you
and
think?
nothing in that interview indicates that Lisa Kudrow did not want to be there.
Hmm.
Like, I mean, if any, Bethany was just as awkward interviewing her as she's always been on her talk show, but like there was nothing that indicated that Lisa Kudrow was uncomfortable or kind of dodging questions. Like, listen, I know when celebs are trying to dodge questions, and I don't think she was doing that.
What was the line of questioning? Like, what was she talking to her about?
They talked about kids. They talked about friends. She had Lisa Kudrow sing "Smelly Cat," so it seemed like a light interview. I'm wondering if it's maybe, I don't know if you've ever experienced this interviewing people, but I know I've had these moments where sometimes you come across a certain person that has a very strong energy that can feel a little intimidating. So it kind of just
Mm.
rattles you a little bit. So you kind of feel like, and a lot of the times I've learned that it comes from usually like nerves. Rarely are they trying to be a dick. They're just kind of nervous in the circumstance. So it may come off as a little intimidating or off-putting, but it's rarely ever trying to be intentionally rude.
Right. No, I can totally agree with you there. Like, I'm actually just thinking about like now that you said that, I'm like looking back at like the interviews where I have felt like that, and there was like I've never seen like a full episode of Pretty Little Liars. Like, I really don't care about Pretty Little Liars
Yeah.
whatsoever. But like maybe like 10 years ago, there was an interview opportunity with Shay Mitchell, and I don't know what it was about interviewing her, but like her presence and her aura and just like the energy she was giving me was so off-putting and imitating that like during my interview, like my teeth were like literally
Yeah.
chattering. Like I was beyond nervous. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was like nerves on both sides
Yeah.
because like really, why would I fucking care?
Yeah.
I've never seen an episode of Pretty Little Liars. So like yes, I understand that. And like maybe that's what Bethenny was experiencing with Lisa. Maybe like Lisa was like, why am I doing this like talk show with a former Real Housewife?
Yeah.
Like, and like Bethenny was probably picking up on that energy too. I don't know.
I mean, Bethany also had Justin Bieber on the show. Like, it was such a random collection. And Ramona, like Lisa Kudrow, Ramona Zinger, Justin Bieber. Like, it was such a random collection of guests. But
I actually went to a live taping of Bethany's
oh, you
show when
did.
I lived in New York City, and the guest on for that particular show was Snooki.
Uh,
And Snooki, I love Snooki. I could talk for days about how much I love Snooki. And Snooki's always ready to play ball and do what she needs to do
yeah.
for whatever needs to be done. But I remember on that episode, there was like some questioning about like breast implants and like Snooki's thoughts about like getting breast implants in the future. And I just like, it felt like I don't know, like awkward. And like, I feel like Bethany's strategy on her talk show was always like, it wasn't like, hey, let's like have a conversation. It was like, hi, welcome to the Lion's Den. Like, I'm ready to
Yes.
fucking eat you.
Yes. And it was always like this. And I don't know if it's maybe because her brain just is so good at working in reality television where you kind of oftentimes like are forging things and having moments, like making Lisa Kudrow sing Smelly Cat. The way she kind of brought, like, it kind of was Lisa, you could tell was like a little caught off guard by it. She's like, can you belt out Smelly Cat right now? And Lisa was kind of like, oh, sure, I can belt out like I'll sing it. Like, so, and there were a lot of those moments. Like, I remember the Omarosa interview on Bethenny. That was like a really contentious interview. And so I feel like you're right. Bethenny has a way of, I think she thinks of it as having these Oprah moments, whereas Oprah can really get you to let your guard down. And Bethenny, I don't think has that same bedside manner or like that energy that opens you up and kind of makes you feel a little comfortable or lets you feel safe in the space.
Yeah, it kind of like puts you on the defense. I'm curious to know your thoughts on the Courtney Stodden Bethenny interview that has resurfaced recently. Like when you watch it back, what do you see? Because I know that with Courtney Stodden in particular, like just all the changes that have happened societally, like we look at Courtney's story through a different lens today.
Yes. So Courtney was 19 at the time that she was on Bethenny, right?
Yes.
So I remember watching that interview like when it first kind of came out, and I've seen it a couple of times since then, but I remember watching it thinking Bethenny is I don't know if I feel like bullying's a really strong word, but I feel like Bethenny saw this as like a blonde bimbo that isn't, because Bethenny's thing is about branding, right? And marketing. What's your brand? That was her issue with Omarosa. She's like, Omarosa, what's your brand? Your brand is controversial. And Omarosa's like, no, my brand is I'm a smart woman. And so Bethenny, I feel like, was doing the same thing with Courtney, and she wanted Courtney to kind of like define the brand, while Bethenny was also kind of trying to like position and prop Courtney as just this dumb blonde bimbo, which, to be fair, was the character Courtney was playing at that time. Now we can go back and be like, well, she was really young. Her parents, pushed Courtney into fame from a very young age. Courtney was married to a much older man. Like, it's dark, and I think at the time we looked at that as sensationalized and like tabloid drama that we were fixated by without realizing how dark that situation actually was and how it was an older man preying on such a young at the time, young girl. And so I feel like the interview was very uncomfortable to watch. So I had actually heard about Courtney's discomfort with Bethenny a couple of years ago. So Courtney used to have a podcast. It was a very short-lived podcast. It got canceled, called This is Courtney, or This is Courtney Stodden. And so on that podcast, I ended up being a co-host on it. The producers really wanted me to be on the project, and I did it reluctantly because I'd known Courtney's brand, as, Bethenny. And again, in reference to the Bethenny interview, I feel like Bethenny was a little hard on her and like kind of was trying to poke fun at her. And listen, we look back and see like the Letterman interview with Paris Hilton, that like the culture was kind of like, let's kick these, blonde, big boobed women while they're down, right? Like, let's not really give them much credibility because, in society, their value is just to be sexualized. So I do have experience working with Courtney, and I know you and I have very different experiences working with Courtney, but my experience wasn't the best experience. I felt like Courtney, and my issue with Courtney has been that I feel like they like to, I don't want to say, I think it's unfair to say capitalize off of cultural moments, but there's definitely a drive to push headlines, and there's definitely a drive to manufacture drama. And I remember that at the time when we filmed the podcast together, there was constantly a need to pick at other celebrities to create these feuds. And if we look back at history, Courtney has had many feuds with different celebrities. We've had Chrissy Teigen, we have had Bethenny, that I think Courtney, and this may just be the environment that Courtney was raised in, but I feel like there's just this desire to run towards chaos and to manufacture drama in order to stay relevant. And I think it probably comes from just a place of comfort or familiarity or whatever it is. But I always take everything that Courtney says with a grain of salt, because I remember hearing this Bethenny story, I think back in like the end of 2018 when Courtney first brought it up, and said that they felt that Bethenny was kind of, rude to them, and that Bethenny was bullying them, and that Bethenny didn't give the best interview. And listen, and I empathize with it. I empathized with it then, but behavior on that podcast just kind of made me feel like, because the intention was to create something buzzy, and then the team would have to then take that and put it out in a press release, which is common on podcasts, to take things that people say on podcasts and then to distribute them via a press release to different news outlets. But I felt like that intention just was a little too uncomfortable for me. And there was one celebrity in particular that Courtney tried to pick a feud with that was kind of the last line for me, because it was somebody that I was very close to. And I was like, you're dragging me into this vortex of chaos, and I don't want to be any part of it. And just behind the scenes, Courtney was not the most pleasant to work with. And not the most professional to work with. And I even went back to like look at my old text messages and emails with the producers at that time to be like, am I rewriting history, or were these actually my feelings and experiences? And so I looked back and I was like, okay, this is validating that I remembered these experiences happening, and that, it wasn't the most pleasant or inviting experience. And I ultimately ended up quitting the show. And then it just got canned altogether.
Taking out your personal interactions with Courtney, what do you make, like, if you were just observing Courtney's feuds with Bethenny and Chrissy and anyone else that Courtney has had a feud with, like, what are your like personal opinions? Do you feel like Courtney has made points?
There are moments where I want to believe that Courtney is doing this with pure intentions, right? I want to believe that when she, is bringing up some of these experiences, that these are coming from a genuine place. But even just in my analysis of kind of watching Courtney's history and background, just, with my experience aside, I do feel like there's always a moment to be had. Every time there's something culturally relevant, I feel like Courtney finds a way to jump in on that. And that's just my opinion now. That's taking my experience out of it. My opinion is that yes, Courtney does have valid points, and I don't want to diminish their experience. However, I also feel like there very much is, and maybe it's just that I grew up in Los Angeles and I know people that are constantly looking for those moments. I'm pretty sure I've found myself, and maybe that's how I'm able to identify it, as I've found myself being caught up in wanting to drive a headline, that I'm able to kind of recognize that in Courtney. But I do think there are moments where there are genuine and valid points that Courtney is making, but I also feel like a lot of it is with the intention of driving relevance.
So erase your entire personal interactions with Courtney. You were asked on a red carpet,
yeah,
Zack, who are you, team Courtney? Are you team Bethenny? Like, what are your thoughts?
Team Courtney, Team Bethenny. I mean, in that specific instance, I would say I don't like the way that Bethenny treated Courtney, and I believe that that was unfair. However, to Bethenny's point as well, I believe Courtney was trying to brand herself a certain way that is what the public was reacting to at that time. You come out with this really bright bleach blonde hair, you have these big boobs, you're wearing these very skimpy outfits, that I think that it was... it's just, listen, I bleach my hair. I know that there's a level of credibility that I lose with certain people with the way that they see me. That I think that that's just perception. Your body and your physique are your business card. So I don't like the way that Bethenny treated Courtney. I don't think that it was fair. I didn't like the interview then. I don't like the interview now. But I believe that there's a bit of some gray area, because I think at that time, especially, Courtney liked to play up that character.
Right. Yeah. And I think that was like because of the like conditioning she had
Absolutely.
they had experienced at the time.
And Courtney was 19 at the time. That I don't think there was a level of awareness on how to act. That's why I think even with behavior that I recognize now, I think it's coming from a place of, still trying to survive the trauma that was experienced from a very young age. I think it's still operating from a place of survival. So I do have a lot of empathy to send that way, but also, yeah.
What did you think of Bethenny's response to Courtney? Because Courtney shared a DM allegedly sent from Bethenny, and Bethenny kind of implied that she is responsible for Courtney's self-growth.
It was very Kanye West, right? Because,
yes.
To be fair, the argument could be made that Kanye did help make Taylor a little more culturally relevant because he made her much bigger than, or that moment made them both a lot more talked about at that time. And she'd been a little newer to the scene, Taylor Swift, but it was very Kanye West, where there was a very big ego involved, and Bethenny does everything and always operates from a place of big ego. And so my recollection was she was trying to say that, Courtney, it looks like you've changed a lot since then. I would hope that your experience on my show kind of motivated this change in behavior. It seems like you're no longer branding yourself that way anymore. I kind of beg to differ a little bit, but I do think that Bethenny took a lot of credit for Courtney's growth and evolution. And I didn't like that. And I think Bethenny often gets blinded by her ego. She's a great personality, and I think people can relate to her thoughts a lot and to her opinions a lot. However, her ego is always what gets in the way of her likability and her just human element, because she always likes to take credit for things that aren't hers to take credit for. So I don't think Courtney's evolution is credited to Bethenny Frankel. If anything, it was probably the opposite, because Courtney's talked about how they cried after having to do that show and how that show was awful for them to experience. So I want to validate that and be like, that's shitty. That I'm pretty sure, if anything, it made you afraid of the media more than it made you want to evolve.
Right. And so after you quit your show with Courtney, was there any correspondence after?
I had zero desire to speak to Courtney afterwards. Zero desire. Just the experience. Courtney always showed up late, always canceled at the last minute. I'm somebody that always tries to be professional. So if I commit to a time and a place, I'm always there. And we were in studio. It wasn't like today or today's era where so many things are done via Zoom or digital. So if I was planning to be in the studio and I find out while I'm on my way to the studio that we're canceled today because for whatever the reason is, it was just, and then the environment on the actual set was just very toxic. I didn't like the way producers were spoken to. I didn't like the way people were treated. I didn't like the way, there was one specific incident where there was a lead producer who I found to be very sweet and very kind, and Courtney created this whole thing about this producer screaming at her on the air. And I watched the footage back, and I was there and I was present, and I even watched it back recently, and I was like, that didn't happen. But then Courtney didn't stop until that producer was removed from the show, and ultimately that producer was removed from the show, and I was like, that was not fair. So there were a lot of those things. But then again, Courtney also never showed up really all there. They would show up high and drink, and openly admitted that on the show as well. So that's not an accusation that I'm making that, is based off of my recollection. It was what Courtney admitted on the show. So I think that maybe there was a bit of a substance abuse issue that may have impaired some of the judgment, and that could have possibly been related to this behavior. But I did not like the behavior that I witnessed, and that was the reason I completely disengaged from having any communication after that.
What year was this?
This was 2018, early 2019.
Okay. Wow.
So
if I had been asked to co-host a podcast with Courtney Stodden, I would be so honored, because I've been such a fan for such a long time. So it's interesting to hear your experience.
And you've had a very different experience, and you've always had a pleasant experience with Courtney, right?
Yeah. I've always had a pleasant experience. Courtney has always been I interviewed them over Zoom earlier this year. so articulate, so kind, on time. Like it was a great discussion. Like anytime we've worked together in any capacity, it's always been a pleasant experience. So I'm wondering if like maybe like I don't know, just maybe there was like some like serious evolution that happened since 2018.
Listen, and I think
Because
that's
my experiences
totally
with
possible.
Courtney have happened post 2018.
Yeah, I think that that's totally possible, and I'm always willing to give people the grace to kind of grow. And listen, I'm pretty sure, and I'm pretty sure people have horror stories of me, and I think circumstances really influence things, and I think people you're surrounded with can influence you. And that's not to say that people can't be an asshole one day and not be. I always like to say I never like to pit people as good or bad. I always like to say people are human and they're equal parts good and bad, and it just depends on the circumstances and the influences around you that determine, how you end up showing up that day. And listen, I hope that Courtney has grown since then. I hope that that's not the experience that, I don't want anybody to have that type of experience working on that set. I know I just always had a lot of anxiety taping that show, and I was always kind of on the edge of my seat, and I always had like my butthole clenched because I was like, oh, what's going to happen today? But listen, I am willing to give room for evolution and growth. I have not kept up with Courtney since then. At least in the year prior, I kind of saw the same type of person, but I kind of disengaged from it. And there's a total possibility that things have changed and evolved since then. And I'm willing to give that credit. I don't know because I haven't kept up with Courtney. I just know what my experience was a few years ago,
Well, no matter what your experience with Courtney was, I urge you to stream Boy Destroyer because it is such a bop.
Listen,
like,
the music is a bop.
The
music is a bop.
The music is a fucking bop. Like, I feel like people don't give Courtney the credit they deserve when it comes to producing bops because Boy Destroyer, Asphalt, Reality, like there are just so many incredible. Oh, also A Pleasure. Like Courtney can actually sing. Like she's like, in my opinion, like a certified pop girl. Like I am so obsessed with her music. So if you are listening and want to get into Courtney's discography, I urge you to start with Boy Destroyer because it's so fucking good.
Yes. I mean, listen, talent is still talent, and Courtney has delivered some bobs. It's the same thing I say with like Erica Jam. Like you don't have to like Erica, but you have to admit Expensive is a bop.
Yes, 100%.
And listen, my experience with Courtney is just one person's experience at one period of time. Many things could have influenced that. I just I'm still to this day skeptical of Courtney, but again, my opinion can always be swayed with new experiences.
So if Courtney and I were to get drinks and we wanted to invite you, would you come?
Oh, I don't know. For you and with you, Evan, I would be open to it. If Courtney just texted me and was like, hey, want to grab drinks, babe? I don't think I would have responded to that. But listen, well, I mean, it's also like Raquel, right? I did not like Raquel at the beginning of Vanderpump Rules, but like Sheena and everybody would always tell me how like sweet and great Raquel is. And so I was like, okay, fine. I guess I'll give her a try. I'll give her a chance because there's an endorsement behind it, right?
Right. Okay, so I'm endorsing Courtney. I think that we could like reunite you two and we could start a new relationship in 2022. Y'all listeners, stay tuned because me, Zach, and Courtney are about to cut it up in West Hollywood.
Okay. I mean, listen, I'm always open to people evolving and changing. We'll have to see.
Okay.
But I mean, I feel like after this now I have to go listen to some of her music now that you've revived some of the
Yes,
pops.
it's so good.
Oh, Evan Real. Is there any other like juicy story that's been like plaguing your brain over the weekend?
What has been plaguing?
I mean, I've just been obsessed with the Oliver stuff. That to me was like the juiciest.
Yes, the Oliver stuff is like absolutely crazy. I can't wait to see how it all plays out on the show because it's so interesting, the experience, like reporting it and then seeing, what is in the press versus what is actually shown on the season. So that'll be interesting to see play out. I feel like this weekend was like Courtney versus Bethenny.
Yeah.
Oliver and Raquel. And then there's also, I don't know if you've been like paying attention to this season of Real Housewives of Atlanta.
Yes.
Yeah, I've been loving this season. I did watch the screener for
The
the
finale.
season 14 finale,
Okay, Andy
and
Cohen said that it's the best finale that we've had for Atlanta in a couple of years.
oh my God, it's so good. The She by Sheree fashion show is it's a moment, but the ending, like, you know, when they do like the little title cards with like what
Yeah.
happens after the fact, it was just so joyous. There was like this there's this remix, like a house remix with Dwight from back in the day saying like a fashion show with no fashions, how dreadful. And it was like the girls dancing to that, and then you see their title cards playing, and I don't know, it's I have not experienced serotonin from the Real Housewives franchise like that in a really long time. And then also Apollo, he makes
Apollo.
he's walking in the
He
fashion
got into some
show.
trouble, didn't he? From his appearance, like some people weren't happy with things that he said on the show.
Yeah, so like Phaedra's inner circle is not pleased about what he said on the show, because basically he got on the show and he was like talking shit about Phaedra.
Yeah.
And I feel like, you know, just as like a fan of Phaedra, or like taking my journalist hat off, like I was like, what the hell? Because Phaedra really stood by your side as much as she could when you were like convicted for fraud and then went to
Yeah.
federal prison. Like she did the best she could. Like no one wants to like stick around in a situation like that. And he on the show with Sheree was like, Phaedra left me to rot. She wouldn't let me see my kids. But like, bro, you're like allegedly penniless and going to prison. Like, what business do you have with my kids? That's what I would think if I
Right.
was Phaedra. So I thought it was like kind of like a little messed up that he went on the show and aired his dirty laundry with Phaedra so many years after the fact, with Sheree of all people, who's like supposedly a good friend of
Yeah.
Phaedra. And who knows? I want to think that like Sheree stood up for Phaedra in the moment and maybe it was just edited out. But from what we saw on the show, it looks like Sheree didn't stick up for Phaedra whatsoever, which I thought was like kind of
Shitty.
concerning and disturbing and disappointing. Either way, Apollo still is fine, and he looks
Yes, he is.
good when he's walking in that fashion show at She by Sheree in his sweatpants, showing off his you know what. And I'm not mad at that. But maybe he could have spoken more kindly of
Phaedra.
Phaedra. Yeah,
Do you think he was doing it to have his moment on TV?
yeah. I mean, what else would it be for? Like, I can't imagine that
I mean,
he
Phaedra said he
got
needs the
paid for
paycheck.
it.
Yeah, Phaedra's like, he needs the paycheck. He needs to.
And that's what I would love to know. I would love to know, okay, so like, hey, he films
He
one
had to
scene
have
with
gone. He
Sheree,
had to
he
have
does
gone
the fashion
film.
show. Like, how much money can Bravo really be forking over? Or is it just for his ego to be like back in the mix and
Probably
filming
both.
scenes and being talked about?
Well, speaking of penniless and going to prison, what are your thoughts on season 3 of Salt Lake City?
Oh my God, I can't wait. It's a weird thing with Salt Lake City because I felt like season 2 was like so long, and I felt
Yeah.
like once that season ended, I just like needed a break. But yeah, after the trailer for season 3, I'm so ready to get back into it. It was so good. It was so explosive. The one thing though from the trailer that I didn't see, and maybe it's just because there wasn't much to film, but any interactions between Lisa Barlow and Meredith Marks. Like, we really didn't get into that, and I want to see how that plays out on season 3, because just with the way things ended on season 2, like, are
Yeah.
we gonna have like any sort of like confrontation? Because it didn't really seem like, other than like the scene where they're all at the table and there was like Meredith, Whitney, and Lisa, and the accusations about Lisa giving sexual favors in order for Vita tequila placements in restaurants. Other than that, there wasn't like any sort of like explosive one-on-one interaction between Meredith and Lisa. And so I wonder if that happened. I need to see them together to at least just like discuss like, hey, we're not friends because you said this about me and this is how it's going to be. Or maybe they decide to put it behind them, which I don't think is going to happen. But either way, I want to see them on camera together, and that could have happened. We just didn't see it in the trailer. And no matter what, I'm excited to see whatever happens.
I'm ready for it. I want to
Yeah.
see a conversation between well, because we didn't really get anything after the reunion, and the reunion didn't really forge any new hope that they were going to repair that friendship.
Yeah, I know. It's like I am on the edge of my seat. I can't wait. I also can't wait to see how these new girls shake up this series. I mean, I know
Oof.
none of them are like technically full time, but it looks like they are ready to infiltrate the group, create drama. There's a few Angies running around, and I know that I can't remember her name, but she's beautiful with like the gray hair. What's her name?
Dana.
Yes, that scene with her and Lisa, I think. Yes.
And listen,
it's giving.
I love that Heather McDonald on her podcast said that she's bringing representation to the gray hair. We're bringing representation. I mean,
she makes it look good. No, I mean, like, honestly, if I ever go like fully gray, and I got a few gray hairs going on, if I go fully gray, I mean, I know she's not fully gray, but like she excites me for the potential of being gray. She looks fabulous.
There's a way to pull off gray. I don't think she's executed it quite well just yet.
Okay, all right.
I feel like it was just like a few like kind of stragglies that I feel like we could have just. My grandma taught me you just get a little mascara and you put it if you haven't dyed it, but you have a picture to take or something. You just get a little mascara just to touch up in the meantime. I mean, now they have like root touch up at CVS. Like, girl, go to CVS, just a little bit. But listen, if she wants to own it, she can own it. But that doesn't mean I have to love it.
Yeah. I mean, I just love that she's like not afraid to like speak her mind.
Do you have gray hair? Do you do root touch up?
I have a little bit of.
Oh, you're letting it grow out.
It's like right here on the side. I've seen like a few, and I don't know what I'm gonna do about it. Like, maybe I'm just gonna like enter my like Zaddy era and let it happen, or I might color it. Who knows? It's like it's very like premature. We'll see what happens.
Wait, can I ask you about this haunting gym that you go to?
You can ask about it, yes.
What is this? Okay, if you need to follow Evan Real on Instagram, because on his Instagram stories, he posts these videos and pictures from this gym, and it is the most terrifying thing I've ever seen because it looks like it's out of a scene from the movie Saw, which was his comparison, not mine.
Yeah, so like I go to this gym in Studio City, which is where I live in LA, and I'm not gonna say the name of the gym because I don't want to put them on blast.
You do put them on blast on Instagram every day.
I never tag them on Instagram. I never tag them because honestly, I enjoy and appreciate the cheap rate that I get for the gym. It's only like $89 a month, which is, if you live in LA, that's a good deal.
Yeah.
So I go to this gym, and honestly, it has everything you need. Like the gym itself isn't crazy. It's wonderful. It's fine. It kind of like looks like it hasn't been updated since 2003, but it has all the machines you need. Anyways, the locker room is a different situation. So it looks like the set of Saw, and I've thought about this for a really long time. And finally, I was just, like as you do after a workout, you're feeling good about yourself. You're taking a selfie, and I'm like, okay, the selfie is fire, but like my background is actually hideous and kind of disturbing. Like it really does look like the set of Saw. So I was like, I can't post this and like not acknowledge it. So I was like, yo, like I'm sorry, but like my gym's locker room looks like the set of Saw, and it really does. Like the lockers are like tattered. Some like I don't even know how to describe it. It's just like absolutely hideous and scary, and I am grateful that I survive every time that I go in there. But if you would like to see more Saw locker room documentation, you can follow me on Instagram at Evan Real. I'm thinking about maybe giving a tour.
I think you should.
Yeah.
Guys, go follow Evan at Evan Real. Do you tweet a lot? I feel like
I don't tweet a lot. I'm really bad on Twitter, to be honest. Like
Twitter.
I feel like so many journos are so good on Twitter, and they're like, hey, this is my story. This is what I'm doing. But I kind of like put most of my work on Instagram. I could get better at Twitter. If you want to follow me on Twitter, it's at Evan_Real. But honestly, like, don't waste your time. Just follow me on Instagram because that's where most of the action is happening.
Twitter
including
is the worst.
My Saw gym selfies.
Twitter is the worst. They are so vile on Twitter, Evan.
Well, I love how active you are on Twitter, because when people come for you on Twitter, you are not afraid to clap back like that. If I'm on Twitter, it's because I'm looking at Zack Peter's clapbacks on Twitter.
They get me into so much trouble.
Fuck.
Because I have these moments where I'm impulsive. I get a little Brandy Glanville, and I get like a little impulsive. Like I was ready to fight with somebody on my way coming into today's taping, but I didn't. I refrained. I was like, good energy for Evan.
Well, I think that like the thing about Zack is that he's always got a hot take, and he's not afraid to share it. And I mean, sometimes your hot takes end up being like not just hot takes, but like correct takes. And when you share them in the moment, they seem controversial. But obviously you have good intuition. Wait, what's your sign again? I feel like I've asked you this before.
I'm a Gemini.
You're a Gemini. So Geminis have good intuition. So like if you guys are ever questioning Zack,
I have yet to be proven wrong.
Slightly psychic.
I have yet to be proven wrong.
So keep that in mind when you come for him on Twitter.
Don't come for me. Because listen, you catch me at the wrong moment and I will clap back. Thank you for listening to #NoFilter with Zack Peter. Evan Real, once again, what are your social handles so everyone can... Well, I guess they can't slide into your DMs because you're engaged now. Congrats.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So at Evan Real is Instagram. You can still slide into my DMs. Like I love meeting new people. And then at Evan_Real is Twitter. But like, I don't know.
Nobody really does it. Do you know about this Twitter green circle thing?
So like I'm trying to like figure it out. But, like,
I didn't realize
it's just like gays like getting
dick pics.
Yeah, which like also I don't mind seeing. So if you want to add me to your circle, add me to your circle.
People added me to their circle, and then I was like, "What are these? Like, why are these dicks coming?" Because I'm not one of the people that like follows porn accounts and then likes them, and then everybody sees your shit. But I had a flood of dicks on my feed, and I was like, "What is this?" And then it says you're in their green circle, and I was like, "Oh, that's what this is."
Yeah.
And I was like,
"Yeah, I have a separate account for that."
I love it. Thank you guys. Follow me at Just Plain Zack or follow the podcast at No Filter with Zack and get some No Filter wine at nofilterwine.com. Must be 21 or older to order, but head over right now because it's hot and you're going to want a nice fresh drink. All right. Love you. Mean it. Bye.